Hello, welcome to today's American Flyer Trains. We're on the bench today with a repair to the 720A Handcar by A.C. Gilbert. This is a 720A from American Flyer Lines, A.C. Gilbert, Type 4. It has a drawbar for the typical cars, vent holes, decal, and lanterns, circa 1952 to 1953. The focus is the removal and replacement of the pump bar. And the reason we're looking at it is that some of the slots are no longer functional on the end of the pump bar. For example, half of this one has broken away. This one's still whole and is functional, but it's getting weaker. The bottom looks like it's about to break off. On this end, both had broken away. So it was very difficult, if not impossible, to hold the operator's arm or wrist or hand in the pump bar while it was moving. What we're going to use, and what I have actually already used on this, is a replacement pump bar that I ordered online, and it came with the replacement pump bar as well as a new pin. So that was the kit. The tools I chose for the work are some blocks. I'll explain how they're used in just a moment. Needle nose pliers, small needle nose pliers, a small hobby hammer, and then anything, any kind of metal rod that can be placed against the pin in order to drive it out. The first step in this assembly, that is in the starting the steps, that there's really 3 steps to get the pump bar off, the hands, the rod, and the pin, is in fact to remove the rod where it attaches on a pin to the pump bar, right there. And this technique may not be widely known. All I did was place it on the track and turn it on and off and on and off. It doesn't matter what direction you're running it in, until I noticed that the rod coming from the main drive gear was in its most upward position. And you can see that that's basically halfway on the slot that it protrudes through. You'll notice too that the pump bar on the opposite end of the rod will be at its lowest possible position. So once you get it up like that, then just flip it off and you're ready, pull it from the track. And the technique that I have found useful is to simply push away in that direction, away from the rod, and hold the pump bar, and then bend the rod away from the pump bar until it clears the pin. It doesn't take a whole lot to do that. I wouldn't use any tools on this. I'd like to use my hands because then I get a better feel for how far I'm bending it, and it's off. And you can proceed with the remainder of the work. And of course, as you'll see at the end of the video, we're just going to use the same procedure. Pump bar away, holding it firmly against the body, bend the rod back just enough to clear that pin. Next up is I had to separate the operator's hands from the pump bar. Now I had only one to do on this one because there was only one left to be functional. The technique and tool that I chose to do this, and I guess I should have listed this in the set of tools, is just a small hobby screwdriver. Get a little bit of magnification. Hobby screwdriver. And how I choose to free the hands is simply to insert this flathead sharp screwdriver into the slot and begin twisting the screwdriver so as to separate these 2 pieces. Carefully, slowly. Then I came at it from the end, that is in parallel with the operator's arm, and would bend it twist it left and right to begin that separation. It's possible maybe to even get this such that you can use needle nose pliers to accomplish this. Another thing that you can do that I have found that worked for me is to insert the screwdriver again, but instead of rotating it along its axis, simply go up and down until you get that separation. It's kind of tedious work, but I found it works quite well. Eventually I could feel the arm and the hand slipping a little bit, and I just took the end of the hand and pulled it straight out, and it freed it from the pump bar. I also considered, but didn't do it, putting drops of penetrating oil on both sides of the pump bar's pin or axle. One of the reasons I did not do it initially, but maybe should have in hindsight, is that the pin can be a little bit of a struggle to remove. Maybe that would make it a little easier, but just keep in mind that if you put penetrating oil here and on the other side, a very small drop, it's going into the cavity that holds the motor. And there's a possibility, of course, it could get on something in there since you can't really see it. One way to alleviate that, of course, would be to separate the chassis from the body. And you've already done the work that's required to do that, and that is separating the rod and then separating the operator's hands from the ends of the pump bar. Right here, the small grooves, uniformly spaced grooves along the shaft, along the axis, are used to create better torque between it and what it's going to be inserted in. I know you've seen these on axles. Now, why is it important to even know that ahead of time? Well, that's because you need to identify which end has the grooves. Where is it on the handle? So what I, what I did is I took a very high illuminated LED flashlight and examined it like this, and then pushed the pump bar in the other direction, examined this end, and finally noticed it's up there on that end. And that was important because you've got to drive the pin out, and what I found works best is to drive it in the direction of where the grooves are. In other words, out. Don't try to pass the grooves from where they currently are, providing that torque to the body, and then out the other end, also having to come in contact with the body again. So what I did is I spaced 2 small blocks of wood. Now you might want to put some sort of cloth on top of those to minimize any possible scratching or chipping or even damage to the decal. And I simply rotated it over like this, very gently, and let it rest so I could drive through the pin and it would come out, and that would have something to support the body. Now, how I drove it out is where it's going to get a little tedious, and you just need to be very patient how you do this. I took this metal pin, I use it for a lot of different things, and I simply put it on the end of the pin and tapped on it with a hobby hammer like this until I felt it begin to move, and then I would take it away, re-examine the pump bar to see if the grooved section was protruding further with each of those applications or the tapping. And it had begun to move, so I kept tapping from that end until I got it out, and then I used needle nose pliers to finish it by grabbing the end of it up and just gently pulling it out. Now, once the grooves are out of the way, you can give it a little gentle twist. This is what I did. You don't want to try to do that when the grooves are in there, because their purpose is to provide torque against that kind of twisting. Once the pin is removed, the pump bar can be removed, and you're ready for the next step, and that is the installation of the new pump bar. Just make sure, and it's most convenient, to go ahead and open the slots where the hands are going to go first before you put it back onto the body, and to ensure that you have the pin right here in its proper location in relation to the rod that comes off the main gear that creates the up and down motion. Turn it around, you got to do it all over again. All I did then was just hold this in place insert the rod from this end with the grooves on top. In other words, on this end right here, put it in and gently tap it in, even without the metal piece, with a hobby hammer until I saw it coming over to this end, and then gently kept tapping it and straightening it a little bit until it was free to move in there as well. Now once it gets in far enough and you're going to engage the grooves, then I decided to put it back on the blocks, use the pin, tap it a couple of more times until the grooves could no longer be seen, which means they were engaged into the body plastic. Once that was done, I individually slid the operator's hands or wrist into the slots and pinched them closed. Now I choose to pinch them closed with needle-nose pliers. You can use anything you want to that works for you, but I would just be very gentle with that, because number one, you don't want it pinched so tight that you can't get the screwdriver in there for the next time you need to do this, or you don't want to sever the operator's hands or wrist off. You shorten these arms, you're going to increase the amount of bending that the body has to do on these men. And when you do that, it makes it more difficult for the pump bar to operate and attach to the rod. This puts more stress on it. So once you get the hands on, you pinched all the slots closed. The last thing is to push the pump bar away from you in that direction and hold it there, and bring the gear rod back up and just center the hole. This is not rocket science, it's just get it in the right place and it should snap in like that. So then it goes back. You'll notice it's not bent, at least not appreciably. It shouldn't bond or rub against the body. So there you have it, Dave's American Flyer Train's methodology for replacing the pump bar. The reasoning for replacing the pump bar was that the slots were damaged or inoperable or non-functional that hold the men's hands in. Without that, of course, the men won't follow the pump bar up and down and back and forth. Their arms won't move, their bodies won't move in and out toward the body. And this will improve that a great deal. If you put the oil in here, just be careful that you're not putting in so much that you might drip some down into the engine compartment area. And of course, this one was important to me because it's the one that pulls the tipple train, number 5300. And as I will demonstrate later, I did not want to take I didn't mention this, but I didn't want to necessarily take the body off of this one. That was the last thing I wanted to do, so I had some motivation for leaving it on there and trying to accomplish this, because this is the Handcar that I converted to DC. And in order to convert it to DC, I had to put a rectifier in the engine compartment, and that was not easy. Well, let me just say it was okay, but it's best to know how to do it and what to use. And there are white papers about how to do that, because I now operate this with a rectifier between the transformer and the track so that I can change directions at will on the Handcar. And I'll demonstrate where I'm using that in my mountain division to push tipple cars into a mine shaft and then pull them back out. Thanks again for watching Dave's American Flyer Trains. If you found this useful, or if you didn't find it useful, please place a comment below.